I'm gonna be canning chicken today. I bought 15 pounds of leg quarters, chicken leg quarters, and first of all I'm gonna wash them. And I'm gonna put them into my pots. After this, I will scrub my sink just to make sure we don't have salmonella growing. I'm gonna fill these pots with filtered water. Between these two pots, I have 6 quarts of water. I'm gonna add a tablespoon of salt into the smaller pot and a tablespoon and a half into the bigger pot, and I'll taste it later, and obviously I can put more salt. I just want the meat to be flavored. I will bring them to boil, cover them, and cook the raw chicken for at least a half an hour, and I will show you what's the next step from there. So I've been cooking these for about 40 minutes. So you need to cook it until you can take the meat off the bones, but you don't want it to fall off the bone. I'm gonna put them on a cookie sheet so they can cool off faster. You know the chicken is ready for the next step when the meat pulls away from the bone, but it's not falling off the bone yet. I have these 2 pots with the broth. I'm gonna combine these 2 pots. Before I do that, I also need some that I'm gonna use to can the chicken, and then the rest will be for cooking the broth further. Strain some of this broth because I'm gonna use that for the canning. I'm gonna combine all my broth into one big pot. So the chicken has cooled. I'm gonna take off the meat, and anything that's not going to be canned as meat will go back into the pot to continue cooking the broth. We'll try to keep the meat pieces as big as possible. I'm gonna try to take the fat off as well, and the skin. chicken, I got about 4 quarts, which will probably fill up 8 pints. And here is the broth and the bones and the skins, which I'm gonna continue cooking for the broth, and then, as I said, I will pick off the bones. I'm gonna go ahead and put some Savory greens and some parsley, a couple of pieces of onions, some garlic, and some frozen parsnips. And that's just so I can flavor it more, because sometimes I want to eat the chicken broth by just itself. So I'm gonna keep cooking this. As a matter of fact, if the water level goes down, I will refill that, but I'm gonna keep cooking this for a couple of hours. So now I'm gonna get ready for the canning process. I have my canner here. I put in 3 quarts of water as recommended by the manufacturer, and that will bring up my water level to the first line. I have an insert in here because I don't want to have the jars directly in the bottom. I have a little bit of vinegar in the water just so they don't get cloudy. So I'm going to start heating my canning water in the oven. I have washed and rinsed 8 pint jars and baked them in the oven for 15 minutes on 215. If you're canning in a pressure canner, you don't really have to sterilize your jars, but I always do. It's just a habit. I got hot water here. I'm gonna put my lids into this and my rings. I'm gonna start loading them with chicken. I'm gonna put about 3/4 full of chicken, which is a 1.5 cups, and the rest will be broth. I'm gonna fill the jars with chicken just to the bottom of the funnel, which is about 1 inch from the top. I can push down a little bit, not too much. I'm gonna fill these with broth. I'm filling them about 1 inch from the top, which is the bottom of my funnel. I'm gonna come back and debubble them by pressing in a wooden spoon. This is important because if you don't debubble, the bubble is going to push out the liquid and then you're going to have siphoning in the canner. Make sure I check the levels. Maybe I need to add some more. Just double checking. Usually when you debubble, the levels will go down. Okay. And then take a wet paper towel that I dipped into the vinegar water, because this is very greasy, so I want to make sure that my jars are not greasy on the top, on the rim, because grease will prevent proper sealing. And these jars are very hot. Okay, now we're gonna get some lids, nice and hot. And the rings. And then I'm going to start tightening these. Now, don't make it too tight, just enough so it's holding the lid down. And then I'm going to start putting that into the canner, which just started to boil. Some of these rings I'm going to throw out because they've just been overly used. And then repeat the process for the next 4 jars. Here's my 8 pints of chicken. Make sure you maintain your lid for your canner according to the instructions. Clean your seal, make sure the openings are not clogged, and then you can close the canner. And start heating it on high. So at this point, I'm only heating it until I see steam coming out of this spout. And at that point, I'm going to turn it down to medium heat and let the steam come out for 10 minutes. That's what's going to vent the canner, so it pushes all the air out and it will be just steam inside, and it allows us to create pressure in the canner. This is what it looks like when it's steaming steadily. So at this point, I'm going to set my timer to 10 minutes. And turn the heat down to medium. While my canner is venting with the chicken in it, I'm going to attend to my chicken broth with the bones and the skins in it. What I did, I took half of my chicken and half of my existing broth and divided between two pots, because I'm going to go ahead and top this off with more water. Since I'm slowly cooking this for 2 hours, I'm going to be able to generate more broth out of it. Instead of having very intense broth, I want to have just broth that I can use right away. So I added 5 more quarts of filtered water for my broth. I'm done venting the canner for 10 minutes. I'm going to put on the weight. This is a 10-pound weight. And turn up the heat again on high. And I'm going to wait until the readout on the gauge reaches 10 pounds. And then I'm going to turn down my canner, and I really want it to go up to 12 pounds of pressure. So that will take about 5 to 6 minutes. We have reached 10 pounds of pressure. At this point, I'm going to turn my heat down to the simmer. And I'm going to wait until it actually reaches 12 pounds. And start timing for 75 minutes for pints. Time is up. I just turned off the heat, and I'm gonna wait an hour for this pressure to go down all the way to 0 before I can open this. Just leave it alone, let it cool naturally. So the pressure is all the way down to 0 now. If I remove the weight, there's no steam coming out. I can safely open this canner now, but it's still hot, so be careful. Keep it away from your face with the steam still coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the jars from the canner. You can see probably that it's still kind of boiling. That's okay. You can see that it's still boiling, and that's how it should be. You want to place them a little far apart so they can cool off. It's not good for them to cool off too slowly, so let them naturally cool off though. Next I'm gonna work on my chicken broth. Maybe bubbling away for a couple of hours. First I'm going to remove all the skin and bones as much as possible. I'm gonna have this cool off because I'm gonna pick through this later. I'm gonna take my big stock pot and strain the broth through a fine mesh strainer. I just don't want to make a big mess with it. Now I'm gonna cool this off just enough so I can take the fat off. Luckily it's cold outside, so I'm just gonna set it outside. So what I'm gonna do is just let the fat float into my ladle. And I'm gonna put them into the mason jar and put that into the fridge, so that should give me the final separation of the good usable fat versus still if there's any broth in it will go on the bottom. I skimmed off this much fat. I'm gonna use this for cooking. Repeat the previous process. I'm gonna do 7 quarts this time because that's all I can fit into my canner. I did reheat my stock. Put it into hot jars. Okay, here goes the last jar into the canner. So that's 7 quart jars that fit in there. And I'm gonna follow the same process as before. The only difference this time is I'm only gonna process these for 25 minutes instead of 75 minutes because it's just liquid. So I'll bring you back when I'm ready to actually take them out. I'm done canning my chicken broth. I got this out of the canner late last night. I was caught up with other things. So at this point, I can take the rings off and I'm gonna wash these with soapy water before I put them into storage because they may have some spillage of the broth, so I don't want anything to be rancid outside the jars. The chicken is totally cool and I did wash the jars and I labeled them, as you can see, with the date and content. So these are ready for storage. You can see that there is some fat on the top, which is great. However, the chicken broth I did take off the fat, so it's gonna have very little fat. Here's all the fat that I skimmed off the broth, and this will be great for cooking. I'm gonna just keep this in the fridge. I also harvested about 2 cups of chicken scraps from the bones after the broth was done cooking. So I'm gonna make chicken salad out of this for dinner tonight. So out of 15 pounds of chicken, like quarters, I got 8 pints of chicken meat. Next time I will be canning some beans, so that will complete my canning for this year. I hope that's gonna fill up all my jars. So I'll see you next time.